Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about how we are going to create the AWS Lambda functions using Terraform and how we are going to expose those Lambda functions as an API using API Gateway, AWS API Gateway. How are we going to do that using Terraform? So that's what we're going to talk about, and we're going to see the demo also. So first we have to install AWS CLI. This is a prerequisite for any of the AWS exercise you want to do. So first you have to install a AWS CLI. Then you have to do an AWS configure. When you run this AWS configure, if you run this, then it'll ask for the access key and secret key and then the region you want to target and then the default output format, everything. That's it. So you got to give all these things. Once you do that, so it's going to log in you onto the AWS. So once you are into the AWS provider, so you are ready to do that and ready to do that actually. So then you have to install the Terraform. So once you install the Terraform, you can just check the version, like Terraform version. So this will give what type of installation you have done and what is the version of the Terraform that's being listed here. So once you've done that, you have to create a Terraform project like this, Terraform AWS Lambda, and then first you have to create a provider.tf, the Terraform file where you have to declare the Terraform provider, required providers. So for us to interact with the AWS, we need AWS provider. So HashiCorp, which is the inventor of Terraform, has provided a provider for AWS. That's HashiCorp / AWS. And then the provider AWS should have a region. So the region on which we are going to create the resources that has to be mentioned here. Provider AWS, and then the region is equal to the US East 1 is the region what we have chosen. This can be changed anywhere. And then once we do that, let's create another file. Let's save this file and then create another file called lambda file. So this is for creating a Python-based lambda function. In order to create this Python function, first we have to create a Python code where we have to create the Python function. So for that, we have created a folder called sample Python, and then inside the folder, we have the file called lambda function over HTTPS. So that's what we have created. So let's open this notepad, and this is the Python function which is going to be getting executed as a lambda function in the AWS. So we have to declare the main method is to here import, declare the imports which we are going to use, and then we just do a print function that we are going to load the function on the console. You can see that, and then default define handler that will be the main method. We have to create a handler. This handler to be need to be referred in the lambda function, so that lambda any event occurred at the lambda function uh, get passed to this function, Python function, and then it get executed. So this is a simple function to show you a demo. Like you just need to create the response with the status code. This is a response object. Return a response object with status code of 200 and body of JSON.dumps, and then JSON is the object imported here. We are going to use the JSON.dumps, and then we are going to pass on this string to the value, return object, response object. So the response object will have the body of hello from Lambda. So that's about it. So once we create it, so we're going to do an archive using this function, and then make it create a zip file. Once we create a zip file, then we're going to upload this using this command aws s3-cp. That's a copy command. We're going to copy this sample python.zip into this bucket. So we have to create a bucket also. So we have to create bucket using the AWS S3 create bucket and the bucket name hyphen hyphen region that gives the region name. So that way we are going to create a bucket. So using that command, we have already created the bucket. This is the bucket we have named, and this is the name of the bucket. And then the version number is going to be the path where we're going to put our create our buckets, create the objects in the bucket. So this is the object we're going to create. So that's going to be uploaded here. So this file going to be uploaded to this path, and then once it gets uploaded, it says it's upload this function is done. So once we are done with this uploading of the code, the function code for the Python, let's jump onto this Terraform. So we have to go to the Terraform. So we have created a function. We have to create a function, AWS Lambda function, and then the name of the function is Python function, and the function name is Python example. Here inside that we have to give a function underscore name. This is the parameter we have to have, and then we have to declare the S3 bucket on which this particular function is going to be referred. So the bucket name we have given here, and then we have to give the key. The key is the path which we have given here, and the path we have referred here for the uploading. The same path we have to give. So we version and then version number and then this name of this zip file. So that we are going to give here as this reference, so that it takes from the bucket this particular code bundle, and then it imports the bundle into the Lambda function. So once we have imported the handler, we have to mention the handler. So where we have to pick up, where this Lambda function has to pick up the code. So it has to go into the folder sample Python that's being created in the inside this Python zip. We go inside, and you can see that sample Python here as a folder. Inside the folder, we have the file. So if you open this file, once you open this file, and then you find this handler method, as we have seen that already. So this is a handler method that's going to be invoked. This is handler method. So that's what we are referring here in this Terraform as a handler here. So this is the name of the file. This is a folder / name of the file, Python file name, and then the handler, the name of the method, the name of the function. Then the runtime is going to be, we have to specify the runtime. So we have to, for Lambda to use the runtime, there are specific set of function runtimes listed in the AWS Lambda. So one of that is the Python 3.8 that we are going to refer here. And once we put that, we're done. And then we have to create the role. We have to create the role for execution of this Lambda function. So this particular role has to be created for this Lambda function. That has been created here in the other file, which is sampled here, like Lambda execution IAM role, and this is for the Lambda to execute. So this is the service name, lambda aws.com. It has an assume role, so it assumes and then gets the token from STS. STS stands for the security token services provided by the AWS. So we are going to use the security token services as a trusted role, and then we're going to assume this role, and for this the principle of AWS Lambda, lambda.aws, Amazon AWS.com is going to be the service name. So for this service account, this is a service principal, and then for this is the action, and it's going to assume that role using STS. So this we have to specify as a assume role policy, and that has to be a file saying that end of file start from here and here end of file, and then we are going to put that entire thing as a role, IAM role here as a resource. So once we are done with that, next we have to define the AWS API gateway resources. So resource is to expose that particular function to external world using the API gateway. So for that, we have to create the gateway resource, API gateway resource, referring to this particular function. So we have that we have to create the REST API. So we are going to create the REST API. So that we are going to create in the API gateway. So wherein we are providing the API gateway. This is the API gateway REST API. So REST API name is sample Python, and it's a serverless Python, and then we have to give a description, and then we are going to refer that here with the ID to identifier for this particular resource to be exposed as an API gateway inside the API gateway. And then the resource for another and the parent ID for this particular resource is to be a root resource ID. And then the path part we are going to give as a proxy plus. This proxy plus expose this particular function as a proxy function to the external world in the API gateway. So once you've done that, and then we're going to do this API gateway method. We're going to create what method we're going to expose. Any HTTP method we're going to expose through this function. And then authorization. There's no authorization. If you want to do authorization, we can always provide authorization using RBAC methods. Any RBAC method can be used. Any kind of identity provider can be integrated with that. And then we have to have the sample Python to be referred here for the gateway method, and then same the gateway API Python ID should be given as a REST API ID, and resource ID is going to be the resource which we have created here, the AWS API gateway resource. Dot the resource name is Python proxy, and that particular resource's ID should be referred as a resource ID here, and method any method and authorization, and then we have to have this particular AWS gateway integration. We're going to integrate. We are going to create an integration for this particular Lambda function, Lambda Python function, to be exposed. So for that, we have to declare the REST API ID as usual, REST API ID and resource ID as usual, and then we have to create the this resource ID is going to be the method. This method is going to be integrated. So for API gateway integration, the method is important. So this method is going to be this method, API gateway method dot the method name, proxy Python, and then the resource ID. This particular resources ID. So the resource ID which we are referring here is the resources ID which we are integrating. So that's where we are getting integrated here, and we have the HTTP method. So the method, we know that method is given here, and the HTTP method is defined here, any, and then integration HTTP method is post. It's a post method. So integration by integration, it's a post method. So we can define any type of methods here that we are going to expose for this integration. And then API proxy, and then type is API AWS proxy, and then URI we are going to define as Python function, and then the invoke ARN. So it's going to be the ARN for this particular resource or function. So that's a URI. So we are going to create a proxy. The proxy is directed to this URI. So that's the integration point here. And once we've done that, and we had to create a gateway method for the proxy root proxy root Python. That's for the root of this particular method, so that we have to have that Python REST API Python ID for the REST API ID, and then resource ID. We are going to get this from the REST API, and then the root resource ID, which is mentioned in the REST API here, which is going to get from this here in this object. And then once we done that, so we're going to do that. Next is the API gateway integration for the root Python. So we have to create this proxy and root as well as the proxy. Both we have to create. So both we have to create this integrations. Once we get done the integrations, and then we have to create a deployment. We're going to deploy this particular function. Sample Python is the name of the deployment, and then that depends on this particular integration. First, the integration point, which we're going to give here, and also this integration of Lambda root Python. So both root as well as the actual integration are going to be mentioned as a dependency for this particular deployment. So it takes from there, and then that refers to these methods, and that in turn refers to the resources, and that in turn refers to the actual Lambda functions. So that way it has